Jonesy, news came out today that Rob Key, Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes were safe. Well, their jobs were safe. It's not like they were saved from the grocery counter at Lidl or anything, but their jobs are safe. That put, I guess, the Ashes debacle to bed eventually, and it's the start of the English season, something obviously we all look forward to. And if you add the start of the English season to the Ashes, you inevitably get to the best Ashes series ever that you obviously played in, which was 2005. Now, we've mentioned '05 a few times in the Ashes, but we haven't really spoken about it at length, and we've never made you the focus of a podcast. And I know you love that sort of stuff. So that's what we're going to do today. How pleased are you about that?
Oh, mate, wonderful. I can't wait to talk about myself. That's the sort of stuff I do on a regular occasion.
Well,
You know me. So, but yeah, going back to your go back to your ramble at the start. For a start, I don't reckon any of those three shop in Lidl. You know, if they're
no, it's unlikely.
I think they're probably
Keys. I mean, you know Rob well, so I'm suspecting he's a Waitrose kind of guy. I would have thought. McCullum's got half a
delivery.
Chance. Yeah. Oh, yeah, as well.
Keys won't be seen anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And Stokes. Yeah, Stokes is more of a Asda meets Tesco, I reckon. Possibly. Anyway.
Yeah, he's a bit man of the people, isn't he? So
he is, exactly.
So yeah, so one of those. But
and when you think back to '05, I take the point. I had to give you some warning because obviously it's 21 years ago now. But when you think back to the '05 series, what's the first kind of image that comes into your mind?
Lord's long room. If we're talking about the test match side of things, it's that first morning, walking both out in the morning and then coming back at lunch. Those two, the visuals, the members basically just giving us a shoulder width corridor to walk down from out of our dressing room, down the stairs, through the long room, and then out onto the pitch, and then thinking and coming back at lunch, even more in that long room because we had a good morning to it. Louder noise, more people sort of making our way up to the dressing room. So that for me is that's my go-to for the start of that series, absolutely, because having walked through Lord's a number of times after that, nothing ever got close to it.
Oh, really? Even like Edgbaston and Trent Bridge, where you won both the tests, did they not reach the levels that Lord set?
Not for the start. You know, obviously slightly different reasons with those ones, you know, sort of, Edgbaston. But we were crapping ourselves at Edgbaston, so that was more relief than anything. Yeah.
Why?
Well, just getting down to those last couple of runners. Yeah, Lords we got absolutely thumped. The best thing about Lords was the first morning. Yeah, the first morning was outstanding. The rest of it was dross. But, so then we go to Edgbaston and then obviously at Trent Bridge getting across the line there. But for iconic long room, home of cricket members, start of an Ashes series, first morning. Yeah, no, I think even though those other moments were amazing, that's always going to top it.
So when you first arrived at Lord's for the first day, can you remember much about that? You know, this is really strange. How did you get there? Did you drive yourself? Lug your own kit bag up there? Did you know all the lads before? All that sort of thing. You know, it's like club cricket, mate, just on the elevated level.
Cricket. Ironically, I do think I think I walked, because where we were staying from the hotel.
From Canterbury?
No. I mean, on the first morning, obviously for the test match, you arrive in your preparation days and you make it sound like I was sort of, I'd just been thrown in for my first test match. I'd played a few before that. So of course I knew all the lads and you go through that preparation. So I had taken my kit, my Puma kit, we get there the day before. I'd gone into the changing room, sort of you pick your spot. I think I was near one of the windows. And so you have that comfort, you have those couple of days warm up. But then, even so the first morning of test matches. Yeah. So we stayed in a really nice hotel. I can't remember the Landmark Hotel. Okay. Very posh, far too posh for me.
That's the one where the balconies face inside the courtyard, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. I think it's about £25 to have a cup of tea in your room. When you request for, so so I didn't go there I'm pretty sure because you had to park your car. Your car was parked underground there. They had this fancy lift. I'm pretty sure I walked up the first morning, and that was sort of what I did at Lord's. And so you just get up there, and I think people probably didn't recognise me, and so I was able to go quite incognito through. But yeah, that whole morning, and then when you're training out there, the crowds were building because you have to walk out onto the nursery to do your practice, and then you walk. So you go through, and you get a sense of how the crowd are feeling, and obviously morning one of the Ashes with the build up we've had, you could feel the buzz of it, but still, running out there that first morning, it sort of struck, and you thought, okay, wow, here we go. This is real. This is the Ashes, and the crowd think we've got a chance.
When did it sort of strike you that you were in the midst of one of the greatest series that ever happened?
And obviously, as it went along, it built up, and after we won the second one, but then it was the last day up at Manchester when we had a chance to win again. And the reports are there's 10,000 people locked out of the ground trying to get tickets. Yeah, I think we've mentioned it before. We went a bit silly and said if we had elephants. I can't remember what that podcast was, but
yeah,
I followed Hoggard, and he's the most craziest person I know, driving like a lunatic, and so he sort of pushed the path through. But so yeah, that moment was a bit like, okay, wow, there's this many people outside the ground. The build up to this point has been pretty epic. But yeah, this is now, yeah, this is where, okay, this is real.
So even though you're all obviously staying in the same hotel, there was no coach bus.
No, not in those days. It wasn't maybe until the following summer or so. Yeah, one day as, you would, you'd arrive in your car, you'd potentially leave it there, and then each day you'd drive in yourself, and at the end of a test match, you'd lug all your bags and you'd chuck them in your boot, and off you'd go. I'm trying to think at that point, it might have been a bit. I think we might have been VW Tourags at that point. So
yeah, okay, nice.
Yeah, that was a nice little perk. We had some nice perks. Jaguar at one point. I had a Mitsubishi Shogun, but yeah, I think that year we might have been the VW Tourags.
Right. And did you have your name on the side? Geraint Jones, Kent, and England. None of those things.
No chance. No, that was a good thing about it. Yeah. I dread to think if you did have your name on the car, some of the things when everyone gets a little bit of road rage, don't they? And if I can imagine some people forgetting over the years that they've got their name plastered down it, and then be dishing out a bit of road rage. But no, we didn't have any of that.
So Matthew Hoggard was the craziest. I'm guessing Andrew Strauss had the loudest voice, but who's the calmest in that dressing room?
I think Vaughan. I think that was one of his assets, is that he gave the impression that he was calmness personified. You didn't know if he'd got naught, double hundred. In a way, he was level and calm, which as a captain under immense pressure like that, I think it helped that under pressure situations, especially when we were fielding, in the days where you could duck off a bit more than they allow you now, he would go off and have a chat with, it'd take 5 minutes, and he'd go and speak with Duncan about Duncan's thoughts, and then he'd come back and he'd give himself a bit of headspace. But nowadays you can't do that as easily. But yeah, Vaughan always struck me throughout the time he was my captain, is that calmness, and the way he went about motivating individually, calmly, trying to boost you up. Because there were some serious characters in that dressing room. When we meet up now, it's sort of and and even in our dressing room as well.
Right.
When you go through the names, it was some really loud sort of guys who were confident and different. So different aspects of what was being buzzed around talking in the change room, and then you add KP to it.
Yeah, you got someone like, I suppose, Flintoff at one end and someone like Harmison at the other end in that sort of spectrum. Yet they were best mates, opposites attract, I suppose.
Yeah, they, from young, touring from young, they formed, under 19, with Rob Key. I think they're known as the Brat Pack, Keysy, Flintoff, and Harmy, because of the way that they went round and what they get up to. So Fred and Harmy were always fairly similar with the way, with their views and the way they thought about stuff and the way they went about it. And then, you add Strauss's with his intelligence to that, what he would add, and Vaughan with his calmness. Gilo, liked a bit of both sides. He's intelligent guy, but he was cheeky. He enjoyed having a laugh, and and then you had Simon Jones, the angry man. He on the pitch he was. Yeah, exactly. So that's part of that side as well, and it was what Fletcher was brilliant for, was putting a group of people together which he knew would gel and would take a team in the direction that he wanted, which would stand up to the Aussies, because that was something that was identified that we needed to do.
Was there much confidence coming into the series? Who had you played before, like over the winter? Was that Pakistan? Is that where you'd been there, and was that the winter before? Can you remember?
No, thanks for bringing that up. That was the one after where we got beaten.
Okay.
We went from a bus ride to. But anyway, no, there was masses of confidence, because going back to the summer before, we'd played West Indies and we'd won all 7 Test matches. Then we went to South Africa and had an epic series against them. Epic Test series, one-day series, not so much. So, and that was Matthew Hoggard bowling South Africa out on the last day of the last Test match for us to win that series. So that was our lead in. Then we had Zimbabwe for a couple of tests at the start.
Right.
I don't think I batted against Zimbabwe, because we guys at the top scored runs.
Yeah.
And then we led into the Ashes. So we had a fantastic lead in, which allowed us individually to build confidence. But as a team, we knew that we were never out of it, because we didn't just rely on 1 or 2 superstars. We contributed in different ways all the way down the order, whether it be with the bat, with the ball, or even in the field with some catches at times. So it was almost it was a perfect way to go into that summer. We had a T20, then we had 2 one-day series, of which the first one-day series was an epic encounter where I think it almost finished tied on that one. We then had a rubbish another go at one-day cricket before the Test match started. So we did really well. We flew into the summer with the T20, the first ever T20. I opened the batting against Brett Lee, and then so we won that. Johnny Lewis got 5 wickets, so that was a great start to the summer. That was in that one day in the last match of that first one-day series. Okay. The first T20, I think I got about 15 or so, but I do remember the first ball facing Brett Lee. So I'd played Brett Lee when I was a 18-year-old, I think it was, back in Australia, and he had a massive reputation. He was at the academy, super quick. And I got 80 against him then. So I knew he was coming, but still in that moment, I basically said, stand still and breathe. That was, the rest will happen. And I did that, and, allowed, because otherwise you can get tense. And if you're tense, you're slow. And I thought, if this is a thunderbolt straight at my head, I need to be ready to move. But he pitched one up, and it was quite nice. Every now and again, the boys show it to me back on YouTube, where it gets hit and it nearly takes his head off. So there was those little elements. KP got some runs, so that was important. And then so we had that first one-day series, which was amazing, which was a great encounter. Yeah, like I said, we should have gone into the Test matches from them, but we had to play another 3 token TV money ones or whatever before we got to Lords.
That wasn't. No, I think that was after that, when Mal Loy swept Brett Lee, like I think in the first over of a one-dayer for 6 over a deep square leg. Do you remember that? I mean,
yeah, that was after.
It was after.
Mel came in after that sort of stuff. So
incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. Trust me. Yeah.
Imagine. Yeah. It's stand still and breathe, or get down on one knee and slog sweep Brett Lee at 150 clicks isn't probably, they don't go hand in glove, do they? At what point do you think that the belief started kicking in, genuinely? I mean, I guess you start off with a bit of bravado and a bit of confidence, then you get beat at Lords, and then you go into, what was it, Edgbaston next. When did true belief that you could actually do this start kicking in?
Well, it started from right at the start of the summer with that T20 and then the one-day series, because there's a few things along the way where we stood up and stood toe-to-toe with them, which was something we identified we needed to do. We couldn't take a back foot step against them because that's exactly what they wanted. And so then, like I say, even though Lords didn't go well, we did that again with, Ricky Ponting got a cut, and there was a few little things where as a group we really stood up for ourselves. And yes, we didn't win, but very simply the message that Vaughan gave us at the end of that test match was, right, we go to Edgbaston and we win. And that's as simple as it was. And that's all we needed as a group was to, was to bring us together. It was to clarify we're still in this. We've got some moments. That first morning shows us this batting lineup. We can get at them. We can score runs. There's little bits along the way. Kev getting his 50s. So little bits of the elements were still there. Yes, it was a poor performance, but going into that second one, we were all still of strong belief, and then things went our way, which really sort of cemented that, and winning that to go 1-1 was massive.
And did you go home between the test matches? Were the gaps big enough that you could do that?
Mate, 21 years ago, I can't remember.
No. I mean, we were doing quite well up to this point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to say yes. It was also, to add to it as well, it was also around the London bombings. So that was all around that Lord's Test match.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the lead up to that, there was quite a bit going on around the cricket. And so I think at one point there was even talk of would the cricket go ahead, but we did. So one part of the summer, which was great, was going home after each test match to see the change across the country in what people were doing in the parks and on the streets. And it didn't happen after that first one, but after the second, we definitely started seeing the football jumpers being put away, being replaced by stumps. And that's something I loved when I did travel back in between test matches, was seeing the dynamic of the country change and the fever pitch that everyone was being taken along with, and how cricket for that summer became the focal point of the country. And I was clearly being on Channel 4 helped.
Yeah,
you can't deny that.
No. And there were watching parties, viewing parties, on the over the weekend, go around people's houses. It was a glorious summer weather-wise, wasn't it? And we would just go around mates' houses and watch the games, and it was a fantastic spectacle. Did so as you were going home throughout the series, did you find that more and more people were sort of recognising you in and around where you lived, or was it still the same for you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Sort of walking, I was someone that still would go and help out with the shopping. And Jen would say to me, that guy's been following us for 3 aisles. Do you want to just say hello to him? And I was oblivious. I was, oh, okay. So little bits like that definitely started to occur. But then on the same side of it, I wasn't anywhere near the levels of a lot of the other guys, because when I was on the TV, I either had a helmet on or I had my gloves and my glasses and a hat. So I sort of was able to go around and just take it all in and still be a bit of a spectator to it all. Yes, clearly there was times when I was more recognised, but I still enjoyed the fact that I had a level of not being recognised, which allowed me to go about some normality.
Even the sheep would have been pleased to see you. I think those are days when you had sheep. Maybe not. When did you find out that, or how did you personally find out that Glenn McGrath stood on the ball?
Yeah, that was just the murmurings around. We were warming up and we didn't, we were going about our business. And then I think whether or not it was one of the players or maybe Phil Neal, who was our manager, the whispers came over that something had gone on over there, and we could see a group. And then, that it was then we could see it was McGrath down, and you obviously couldn't tell how bad it was. But then I think they brought the golf buggy out to to take him off. Yeah, we couldn't exactly tell, but we'd figured the fact that he couldn't walk off, and there was such a sort of focus on him that it was something big. And then obviously it came through at the toss that he was out, and it flummoxed Ponting, and they decided to bowl, and so it really threw them. But yeah, so it was just one of those ones where the whispers started, and we were meant to be warming up and focusing on ourselves because it was such big news. Everyone was looking over just to find out, just to see what on earth was going on over there.
And Edgbaston obviously finishes very tightly, 2 runs, as the picture behind us shows, or behind you shows. Did it feel? Could you feel the tension of what a 2-run victory or loss would look like? If you know what I mean, was it as tight as that, as everybody else at home was thinking and seeing and feeling?
Oh, I know we don't try to swear on the pod, but we were all shitting ourselves, to put it crassly, because we walking out that morning, we all felt it was never going to get that close. But you had Brett Lee out there, and I remember, it's sort of, if I do Q&A or anything anywhere, I'll sort of regale the story of when I walk out that morning. There's an Aussie group dressed in yellow. They call themselves the Fanatics, and they started singing how many runs that Aussies needed to win. And each run they scored, they would reduce it, and they would, so when I heard them start, that resonated with me, and I just thought, I don't, that could, if that keeps going, I don't particularly like that. And it did. And then there was other things happen across the morning, which were, Harmy bowled one down leg side, bounced in the footholes, went over my head.
Oh yeah.
Brett Lee was batting fantastically. If you look back at the way Shane Warne got out, it was utterly bizarre. Kicked his stumps out of. I don't think I've seen anyone. Yeah, and but the way he managed to do it was I say just utterly bizarre. And then other bits, Simon dropping. It was a ridiculously hard catch, but we felt, that was our moment. And then Brett Lee laced that one out to KP at deep point, and still to this day we don't know if it was genius or we'd just forgotten him that he was out there, but thankfully he was. But I kept telling myself as I got closer and closer, just through the nature of stuff. I dropped 2 stinkers at Lords, and so the pressure was on me. So that's why the Fanatics were giving me a bit of banter, bit of sort of good jip, and so I just kept saying, we will get another chance, and it's likely to come my way. Just be ready. Make sure you catch it. And so that's, for however long, the last half hour or so, as it got closer and closer, that's before every ball. That's just what I kept telling myself. And so then when it came off his glove, and I could see it in slow motion. It sort of go up there, hit the glove. I'm tracking it, go a couple of steps to my left, in the gloves, see it settle in my gloves, rolling over, look up, and then, looking towards Billy, sticking his finger up, and then pandemonium exploded. I went nuts. I broke free of
you ran to the crowd,
of Giles. Yeah, exactly. I ran to say thanks to those Fanatics for all the support they'd given me the morning, and but that tension, it was. And that's what it was. It was a pure release of tension. It wasn't, yes, it was joy about winning the match, but it was tension relief of getting through that situation. Ashley Giles, that was his home ground. He was sort of working out, how the heck am I ever going to live this down? How am I going to get out of here if we don't win this? Had Trez next to me at first slip, who was a bit of a nervous character anyway. So that was going, so in and around us, we had sort of guys who were all thinking the same, and the odd comment was coming up. So for me, it was tension relief rather than ecstasy of winning.
You got runs at Edgbaston, didn't you?
Don't think so. I thought not many. I don't think I did much other than take one catch, to be honest.
Oh, was it Trent Bridge you got runs?
Trent Bridge, I got some. Yeah. Freddie got runs. Freddie had an extraordinary innings there, and so that was the start of the Fred show at that 05 series. Sort of hooking Brett Lee into the stands for 6. But yeah, I don't. Honestly, other than that one catch, there's not a lot that stands out for me in that match.
Well, we might see that when we talk about your best combined 11. Why don't we take a break there, Jonesy, and move on to Silly Point?
Sounds good.
Obviously, we all know you love Silly Point and all of the bits I can come up with. I don't think recently, actually, we've done the same thing twice, which is I'm trying to keep you on your toes here. But this time I thought I'd do an easy. I say it's easy because you played in it, but a question about 05, okay? And then after that, we
So
can do
easy
your
for you.
award.
You know the answer.
Yeah, no, well, I did some research. And then you could do your best combined 11, which should be quite interesting, with your best 05 combined 11. But here's your question for Silly Point. In the 2005 Ashes, how many hundreds were scored in the series and by whom? You can do, we can go through it sequentially. Lords, we'll start with Lords.
I don't think anyone got one at Lords.
Correct. Edgbaston?
Yeah. None of the Aussies that I can recall. And with us, the only one who maybe got close was Fred, but I don't think Fred got 100 in that at Edgbaston.
Okay, you're right. There's none in Edge. So the first two tests, there were no hundreds. Where'd you go after that? Old Trafford or Trent Bridge? Old Trafford.
Old Trafford.
Yeah. Was that the next test? Was that the third test?
Yeah.
You okay?
Yeah. Vaughan, Strauss.
Yeah.
Ponting.
Brilliant. Yeah, big runs there, weren't there? Ponting 160 odd, Ponting 150, Strauss 106. So that's 3. Then you go to Trent
That
Bridge.
150 by Ponting was probably the best captain's knock that I saw in my career. You know, we got 150 odd. I eventually got him caught down leg side, not dissimilar to that final dismissal at Edgbaston. And that brought out McGrath to bat at the end, where we thought we had, I think we had 10 balls to get McGrath out at a wicket. But without Ponting's 150, we would have won that match easily and gone 2-1 up.
Yeah, because that was a draw, that test, wasn't it? At Old Trafford. Then you go to Trent Bridge, and how many hundreds there?
Definitely Fred.
Yeah. Anybody else you can recall?
Did Vaughan? Not that's flowing to me, but I know it was Fred because Freddie and I put on 177 in that for a partnership.
Were you out there when he got his 100?
We only, yeah. Actually, we declared, didn't we? No one got one in the second innings, that's for sure, because we were only chasing 120 and we were 8 down. So I think just Fred, because someone told me a stat that as a partnership, Freddie and I, at one point, you know, towards the end of my career, we were averaging over 60 as a pair. So we really enjoyed batting together, and we combined well. Fred was extraordinary down the wicket, so anything full he pounced on and he really whacked. Whereas I tended to be sit back a bit, cuts and pulls, and so as a batting pair, we made it hard for bowlers because their lengths varied so much between our two styles. So I think that's where we complemented each other. And if they went short at, you know, they're going short at me and I didn't mind it, Freddie was okay pretty good at it too. But so I'm just going to say Fred.
Correct. So far you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you get to the Oval. Final test.
Yeah.
How many hundreds there?
KP.
Yeah.
KP 50, for us.
KP for England, yeah.
Yeah, and then for Australia, their openers came to the party in that one. So I'm trying to think which one it was, if it was Langer and Hayden, but Langer or Hayden. I think it might have been that. Yeah, I'll probably get it wrong. It was one of those two got 100 up front, I think.
So how many for England in that test?
Did Strauss get another one? Or Vaughan? I'm going to say KP plus 1.
Yeah, fine. It was Strauss was the other one.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think.
And you think one of the Aussies or both the Aussies?
I know that they had a good opening partnership for the first time in that series.
Yeah.
But I don't think they both got hundreds. I think Langer got 100 and not Hayden.
And you missed it by 1. They both got 100. Hayden got 138. Langer got 105. 8 was the answer. Not bad. Do you know, that's quite low for such an iconic series. If you look at the last year's England-India, there were 2100s in that series. And if Harry Brook he got out for 99. If he'd got 100, it would have broken the record, which was set in 1955, West Indies versus Australia. And in the Ashes, it's 17, 1920s, right? Twice, so.
Cricket's much easier these days. 21 years ago, it was properly hard.
Well, exactly, mate. Go on then. I asked you before.
It is the one thing I kick myself for, actually. I got 85 at Trent Bridge, and I should have. You talk about regrets in sport. My regret is that I didn't trust my lower order more, and I tried to get to the 100 too quick. I got out, caught and bowled off an inside edge. That's how hard I was trying to hit it.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So, yeah.
So what did you do? Hit your pads and bounce?
I was trying to get. Yeah, I literally went back, caught and bowled. I was trying to get 15 off one. So if I had my time again, I'd go back there and I'd trust Gilo. I'd trust the guys more, and I would just bat my way to an Ashes 100 and my second 100.
Yeah. And Hoggard proved himself once, didn't he? Was it Hoggard and Giles at the end? Where was that?
Yeah, no, that was the second innings.
That was Trent Bridge. Trent Bridge. Did the Aussies ever lose their aura? Actually, at any point. Now, answer that, then we'll go to your whether the Aussies lost their aura, and then we'll go to your combined 11.
I don't think aura, because they were, because we could never underestimate them. But again, an iconic moment for us was at the end of Old Trafford, where they'd batted out for a draw. They'd saved a draw, and so again, Vaughan got us together. We looked back towards the pavilion, and the Aussies were all out on the pavilion celebrating them drawing.
That's when Shane Walker was dancing on the balcony.
Oh no, that's in with the stump up. That's in previous ones. That's before my time. That's when they did win there. No, they were just out there celebrating the fact that McGrath, that their last wicket, we hadn't won that, so it was still 1-1 at that point. And so for us, it was just very pivotal that we look back and we watched. Look at this great Australian team full of legends, all out on the balcony celebrating a draw. This is something they don't ever really have to do. So take that with us. Take that to the next Test match, which we did.
Do you think that comes naturally as a leader? For someone like Michael Vaughan to sort of to see that and turn it into something that's motivating. Do you think that sort of type of thing is what determines or makes a good leader against those who would see it but would do nothing with it, as part of their sort of motivational tactics?
Yeah, I think absolutely awareness, and that's essentially what I felt Vaughan was very good at. He was aware of you as an individual, what you needed, what he wanted from you. He would often come up to me and sort of just quietly in the dressing room, sort of just sidle up to me and just give me a bit of a boost and said, "Yeah, you got 50 for me today, lad." And that was all. And it was his way of saying, "I need some runs, and you're capable. I want them off you." But it wasn't pressure with that. It was his awareness of the situation. And in that moment, again, to look back, because I can imagine a lot of people would think, "What would I have done in that situation?" And I think very few would have turned to look. So he'd clearly summed up the situation before it and had seen that, we could tell that the Aussies were out there. They were clapping every run and stuff, but still to take that moment and verbalize it and get us to recognize it. That's the sort of thing that excellent leadership does. And they take it away from them and make it a group thing and a group awareness.
Which is interesting when you've got such strong characters like Andrew Flintoff and Kevin Peterson in that side, who may or may not have got on well or whatever. But for Michael Vaughan to take, characters like that, let's say characters like you and Trescothick and Harmison, who are sort of quieter, let's say, and mould everybody into a team where there was the people shone, but there was equality as well because it was a unified thing, is great captaincy. So what did he do? How did he treat let's say, Andrew Flintoff, Kevin Peterson, and you, let's say, differently or not, to be able to get the best out of you?
Well, the one thing he had as a group, which is undeniable, he had a fiercely determined group, and each of us displayed our competitiveness differently. For me, I was fiercely determined to do well, to contribute to the team. It wasn't necessarily about my individual stuff, and it was about what my team dynamic was. And whereas, and then you talked about those other big names, so you didn't have to. A lot of the managing of Fred and KP was done again subtly away from the group, because the one thing with those guys, you didn't want to show them up in front of the group, and I don't mean show them, but so you had to, Fred and KP had this banter relationship. KP was a different character to what a lot of us were used to. So when I first came into the side, I had Nasser Hussain, Mark Butcher, Graham Thorpe. So these guys who you knew had stuff going on outside of the game in terms of sponsorship, newspaper articles. They had that sort of personal deals outside of the game, but they kept those very quiet. You never exactly knew what the difference with KP, and being the nature is. KP brought those into the dressing room and made everyone aware of, listen, there's a world outside of this dressing room where you can, with the right stuff, you can make money. I've got someone that can do your teeth. I've got someone that can get you a watch, and so, I quite enjoyed just sitting there listening to, because Fred would give KP some stick about going open, he'd go to the opening of a paper bag, stuff like that, whereas, and so that was a different dynamic. So they had that banter, but Vaughan was very astute in understanding that what these guys needed individually away. And don't get me wrong, I reckon they were tough to manage, because of those characters. But around that, he had some stable guys that he probably didn't need to worry too much about in terms of, myself, Strauss, Truskothic, Gilo.
Or basically everybody else.
Yeah, so he had a core group, but he had to put up with Hoggard, he had to put up with Harmison, Flintoff, Jones, so listen, he had his work cut out, but I don't really remember, I shouldn't even say really, I don't remember any big dressing room bust-ups in that 05 guys where there was disagreements and there was, we felt we should go different directions. The direction was always very clear, and and Vaughan, and got to give Fletcher a huge amount of credit for that, because he picked on character as much as talent.
Did you play with or against any of those Aussies age group stuff when you lived in Australia? Brett Lee, you said you played against.
I did. Yeah. A lot of the Queenslanders. So Hayden, I did. Kaspovich. I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, I played against Lee, Brett Lee. I was playing for Queensland Colts. And for me, you mentioned Aura before. That massively helped me not see them as, yes, they were legends, but I remember playing against these guys when I was playing for Beenleigh Logan down on Douth Park in Beenleigh, where it was just grade cricket. And so I sort of took myself back to that, and that was my way of dealing it. And I very purposefully took myself into the Aussie dressing room after we lost that first Test match, because again, I wanted to break down that barrier of, these guys are superstars, they're legends, they're unbeatable. We haven't won an Ashes for 18 years. So I wanted to go in there. I wanted to meet Gilchrist. I wanted to sit with him, have a beer with him, again, because that's just going to chip away at that. He's a cricketer. Yeah, he's a bloody good one, but he's a cricketer, and then I know a few of these others, with Vaughan, these sort of guys. So that was my approach, is to try and level out, take me back to Brisbane grade cricket, where I'd played against a number of them. I'd done all right, even against, Hayden and all the Queenslanders. I'd been out with them at the Gabba playing a light again for the seconds. And it was just going back to then, where actually these guys, I don't know if they remember me, but I've walked on the same pitch as them. I've played against them before, and I've done all right.
So no one ever gave you any grief over that on their side?
No. And again, because I never played particularly high level over there. You're going to say to me, "Oh, you played second 11 cricket, what have you?" But yeah, a little bit in Queensland Colts, but I didn't ever get to the realms of being in the squad, like the Bulls squad or anything like that. So I was always a periphery player, and so that helped. And to move that, so yeah, I didn't. So guys before Mark McCaig, who I played with at Kent. He copped it hugely, but he had played a higher level over there, and he'd played against those guys, and he was seen as he left opportunities in Australia where he was playing first class to come to England and sort of gave up on that. Whereas I'd forced my opportunity was forced over in England, and that's where it had come through. So no, they were pretty gentle to me, to be honest. I don't recall too much. It wasn't until 06, 07 when my dad made comments in warm-ups, and there was a big paper splash that then they probably made up for what they didn't say to me in 05.
He didn't say, yeah. Were beers allowed in each other's changing rooms? I thought you kept some sort of hands-off attitude to the whole thing. No?
No, and that's the one thing that the Aussie legends, so your Borders, your Boons, these guys really came out hard after 05 and said it was too friendly, because exactly that, because there was definitely after the first test match we were in having beers. So there was that post-match, and I think the nature of the series probably lent itself towards that these two teams really going at it. Right, okay, at the end we're still going to respect each other and have a beer at the end. So there was that. It definitely changed when we went back there in 06 and 07. It was, again, those legends had come out, and the Aussies were basically banned from talking to us. So whereas before we would be sort of, we would have said hello to it, and they sort of just cut us off completely, and that was their methodology. But for me, 05 was really hard to beat on the pitch and off it, because the respect level flowed through both.
What do you think people still talk about that series to this day? If you think of it now we're talking, right? So just sorry to interrupt you, but obviously you played in it, and I'm bringing back memories to this chat. But for me, it was like there's been 21 series or whatever at home since then. Of what, let's say 5 or 6 have been Ashes series or whatever. And I can remember bits of 19, and especially obviously at the end at Headingley and Ben Stokes, but I don't remember much else about it. And that's probably the next best Ashes series after the 05 one. Yeah, 05, I can remember a lot of what happened. Why do you think it still remains such a big thing in people's memories?
I think the nature of the cricket, yes, being on free-to-air TV definitely helped. So people, kids at school, boys and girls at school, teachers at school would be watching it. I've been told loads of stories how that they would rush out of class and get into the common room. They wouldn't even go to school so they could watch it. And that it's because of the country, the way they all got behind it. People also remember what they were doing at key moments. So I've had loads of different stories about when I took that catch, what people were doing. And this is it varies from them being in a campsite in the middle of nowhere where there's but not only in their tent, there was a few other tents that, everyone cheered at the same time, and people not being able to watch, so different stories of what people had to go for walks, listening on the radio. So there's so many stories. It might be good for people to sort of relive what they were doing, and maybe some comments to come back about, I was doing this. I remember at that point, people told me they've stacked the dishwasher away in the fridge, crazy things like that. But, hiding behind sofas where, the Queen said to us when we went up there that she, Prince Philip was hiding behind the sofa, and she sort of, had to tell him to have a word with himself. But that was the sort of thing. It captivated so many people, and still people our age now, it's still vividly in their memory. And so where I was at that moment, people can go back to it and say.
You've mentioned most of the protagonists in the last 45 minutes or so. So I did ask you a while ago, but we'll get to it now, what your combined 11 is from that series. Go for it. What is it?
Pretty. It's. I know. I'm gonna cop some heat for this, but oh well.
Is Pat Cummins not in it? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. Well. So basically, okay. Listen up. You go. Trescothick, Strauss, controversial straight off the bat.
Yeah, exactly.
Ponting, Vaughan, Peterson, Flintoff, Gilchrist, Vaughan, Hogarth, Harmison, Simon Jones.
So no McGrath, no Lee.
Because no. Well,
no. Who else is missing? That's probably and the top two, right? So I'd say, yeah, Hayden Langer, probably not both of them, one of them, McGrath and Lee, and they're going to be your controversial points, aren't they? You would say.
Yeah.
So give us a case for why they've been excluded.
Well, the top two, because you've mentioned they got 100 each, but my two, the way they battered at Edgbaston when we scored 400 in a day, and and I'll put a caveat. I wouldn't if this was an away series, I'd take out Trescothick and I'd probably put Hayden in. Perform that well in odds, from what I remember. Stats may say this, but just remember him talking that he struggled a bit over there. McGrath had the wood on him in Australia and he would nick balls. But in England, English conditions, from that series, I'm going to put Trescothick ahead of both those guys because Hogarth bowled incredibly well to both those lefties and they really, really struggled with him. And then add that to Fred coming around the wicket. So, and Strauss scored 200.
Yeah. Yeah, no one else did they? And if it was in Australia, though, would you not play McGrath instead of Harmison?
Yeah, and that's where I'd put slashers, Hogarth / McGrath.
Okay.
Because again, the swinging ball in Australia, Hoggy would lethal good up front early, but once that Kookaburra ball stops swinging, it becomes a bit of a seamer's wicket. So McGrath, listen, how on earth I've left McGrath out, I don't really know.
No,
but
exactly. It is another
in that series. Yeah, in that series, he wore his golden boots at Lords. I think it was 500th wicket he got.
500.
But then following that, he didn't play at Edgbaston, and then he basically played on one leg. How he played Trent Bridge or how he played Manchester and the others was unbelievable because he could hardly walk. But what it meant that he wasn't as potent, and so whereas Hoggy throughout that series. So that's my caveat on that one.
The other one is you. You've left yourself out, which doesn't come as any surprise to me at all. But didn't you do better statistically? Another thing you don't like. Didn't you do better than Adam Gilchrist in that series?
I think so. I think I might have scored more runs than him. And when it comes back to, again, if it comes back to contribution, I felt I probably had a few more defining moments. My 177 with Freddie went a long way towards it. The catch, but mate, you're never going to get me to put myself in front of.
No, I realise that. Which is I'd like our listeners and viewers who listen to this or watch this part to maybe send in their combined 11s from the 05 series, and let's see how many teams you make it into.
The main reason also I went into the dressing room after the first test because I was a massive Gilchrist fanboy, so I just wanted to be close to him.
I told a fanboy. I remember when we first met back in 2007 or so, I think, at the Hong Kong Kowloon Cricket Club, where there was involved. You were playing in the sixes, and it was you in the Kowloon in the KCC change rooms where I played in my late teens, early 20s, sitting there having a beer, listening to you, McGrath, and Shane Warne talking about 05 was definitely fanboy moment for me. I think my first question to you was about what were the defining moments of the series? What did I say? I said, what's the first image that comes to mind? I think the first image that comes to mind of a lot of people is Downing Street or post Downing Street, and especially Fred and KP and all the the stuff that happened on the bus and whatever. Who enjoyed the celebrations the most? And I don't mean, Fred's antics, but in general, who do you think sort of soaked in the moment the most?
I think we're all pretty good. Freddie obviously took it to another level. Freddie and Harmy didn't leave the hotel. That was a distinct choice of them, of theirs, because they just wanted to. They didn't want to go into London. We ended up in London at someplace Kev had sorted out for us. And the most enjoyable bit for that was I snuck 4 of my mates in and so got to spend the night celebrating with them. And so that was, when we were walking around the Oval having won, I was walking around and my main goal was to pick those guys out to give them a thumbs up. I'd sorted them out with tickets the whole way through the Ashes and, the full hospitality. So, so I was definitely, and the fact I was able to get them in for the celebrations was, it was pretty special to me because that's what I was about. I was with a team I just achieved something pretty special with and some really close teammates. But ultimately, we were in some swanky nightclub that I was completely out of place. So I was happy just chatting to my mates.
Yeah. Do you think that series changed the perception of English cricket?
It definitely put us back on the, when I say back on the map, we, English cricket's been, played an important part in cricket. But what it did was for the Ashes, where for 18 years it had been hard work. It would be, it was completely one-way traffic. It showed those going forward a way to play, to stand up. And, we played aggressive, but we also played, we scored 400 in a day, which at that point in time wasn't, exactly. And so, the way Freddie batted, me coming down the bottom order, sort of intent, what it showed was an intent that way that you can play cricket and be successful at it, which I think was the difference to the years before. Those guys I mentioned before, Hussain and that era before had been through a torrid time where they were never given security in their place. And so with that, you had insecure batters. And so guys who are always out there thinking about, am I going to play the next test match? Whereas what you had here was a group of players that you'd seen grow together, have success together, and then do something special. And so with that, it resonated with everyone, and everyone got excited as to what potentially could be. The real shame was that team broke up almost instantly. Simon Jones, here at the Trent Bridge, he got 5 for in the first innings and then limped off, and he didn't bowl. We just made them follow on, and Simon announced to us he couldn't bowl again. So that happened. Vaughan, he had a knee problem. So he didn't come to Pakistan with us. Trez started having his mental health issues. And so from there, it really, as a team, we, Freddie as well was injured. We got ripped apart really quickly. So that was a real shame that we couldn't extend what we had created for a bit longer.
And was there a final goodbye after the Oval? So you've all been out, come back in various stages. And was there like a formal thing at the end? How did you all just leave each other?
So we ended up back at Lord's that
Right.
day. So, sort of, that back at Lord's, they'd put a bit of another reception on for us there. We were all pretty waxed by then. So I think a few of them might have carried on that night. I definitely didn't. But we sort of finished there. And I suppose the next bit, then Pakistan happened. The next bit was when we got together collecting our MBEs up at the palace. That was sort of the back together moment, and that's okay. We've done something pretty special here, and back as a group, because the group, as I said, the group was broken apart pretty quick through different circumstances.
21 years this year,
and it's only
go on.
it's only in the last year that we've properly got back together, to be honest. Vaughan last summer created a WhatsApp group. He organised us going to Lords, and organised us meeting in the tavern and then going and sitting and watching. And that, to be honest, is pretty much as a group from what I can. We had a charity ball for a rugby club that got a lot of us back together, but casually just being mates, being in each other's company. It's only been in the last 12 or so months that the gang's been reformed, put it that way.
21 years this year. Anything planned that you know of?
They didn't do it. Well, nothing happened for 20 years. Well,
no,
20,
true, yeah.
20. That's what I mean with Vaughan last year, sort of doing that together, because that's where cricket's a funny one. You would think, for a lot of people thinking 20 years, unbelievable. What, you guys must be traveling around, meeting up, going to every test match. No. That's a funny one with cricket, that I know that international rugby players get tickets to Twickenham for every home match. And so you have I can't remember the room that it's called, but you pretty much know that within that room there's going to be ex-internationals. For whatever reason, cricket has got this thing of when you're done, you're out. You're done. The only time I go up to Lords really is when I go up as an MCC member, and I'm so rubbish at using that I don't go up there enough, because other than that, cricket has got this weird thing where it doesn't matter what you've done, and in a way they don't want to celebrate 2005 too much because of the current side. We don't want to take away the shine, and for me it's not about that. It's a fact that you've got guys that have played for England, and not just the 2005. We're all cricket fans, but yeah, no, cricket's just got a weird sort of thing that once your time's done, you're sort of off you go, and we may never see you again.
Well, let's see how many of them we can get on the podcast over the summer. Jonesy, we're on the verge of a new English season. We'll preview that next week. Great to chat.
And then it's not long before the Kent women matches start. So I land back on the Saturday when our Kent women have got their first pre-season matches against Exeter Uni. And then the following week, we've got our first away match to Northampton's. We're outside on the weekend, glorious weather, being on grass wickets for the first time. And so the depths of winter we've come out of, and, cricket season is pretty much about to be underway. I know that the Kent men have been playing Surrey today, so I'm going down there tomorrow to do a bit of work with the keepers and watch that. And so the fact we've had good weather, sun's been out, and people have been able to play on wickets, grass wickets outside is, it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to the summer ahead.
Me too. I've got doing commentary for, what am I doing? Hampshire Essex first weekend. So that's me down at the Utility.
Tune into that, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to my dulcet tones on that. Where I can be just as funny on that as I am on this. And on that note, Geraint Jones, good to see you, mate. I will speak to you. We'll try and get one in before you go skiing. You never know. Up Madonna's Dolomites or whatever it's called. We might not see you again. I'll see you soon.
See ya.